Well, my wife didn't want me to record her helping me push it up on the trailer. She said she didn't sign a waiver. Ah, I got you. Well, she's all blasted. We didn't do the roof area because it's pretty thin. He said there could be an issue. We could warp it real bad, so he said not to do that. He didn't do it, which is fine. I can just sand that. It's the only part of the car that has any paint left on it or anything. It's just the roof area there where the metal's pretty thin, and he was concerned that there may be an issue. This is pretty sweet. Man, they did a really nice job getting this thing cleaned up. I'm really happy. I mean, you remember what that looked like. It is mint. And honestly, the car is actually more solid than I was thinking it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, and she turned out to be pretty solid, actually. As you can see, you know, she's bare metal now, you know, completely. I did get it to the sandblaster. You know, you guys can check out a little bit in this video. You'll see some sandblasting footage. Nothing crazy because I couldn't really get in there. But you can see she's pretty rotted in here too. It's not entirely horrid. You know, this is all fixable, but I am going to be putting Capri quarters on it and doing some wheel flares to give it a little bit more of a wide body look. So I'm not really concerned about that. The only part we didn't sandblast was the top. You know, he was concerned because some of the rivets were popped on it, so he was concerned it would warp if he were to sandblast it. He did do in here really nicely. He got inside of the T-top channels really good. I am going to be popping every single rivet on this and taking it completely out. And I'm going to powder coat all of the bracketry and just redo everything, make sure it's perfect. And you can see in here everything. He really took his time on it. He went around. He did all the inside everywhere that he could reach, with it being on the little chassis dolly like I got it. But it actually is a lot cleaner than I thought it was going to be. I really thought there was going to be a lot more rot, especially up in here, but you can see it's not entirely, you know, rotted out and gone. So, you know, by doing this, I'm going to be able to epoxy all of this and make it okay, you know, especially after having it sandblasted. We are going to be taking it to the shop tonight. I'm going to drop it off at the shop, and then we're going to go ahead and get this thing etch primed and epoxy primed over the weekend here. But yeah, it's a lot cleaner than I thought. There's a few areas that I didn't see, like here, you know, you couldn't see all the Swiss cheese that's in this corner right here. There's a little bit missing up here. I'm going to have to, you know, piece that in a little bit, but that isn't going to be too much of a concern. You know, I am overall very happy with how everything came out. I did think that this was going to be rotted out more than it was, and you know, I'm fortunate. It is just the very bottom of the rocker here that's gone, so I can cap that all in. That won't be a problem. I can just make that from another piece of a car, or they do make some aftermarket rocker panels for these things. But you know, it's overall, it's ready to go. It's ready to get some etch prime on it, and I'm going to go ahead and get it loaded up on the trailer here, and then we'll see you guys at the shop. So for material, what I'm using here to etch prime this is a Sherwin-Williams Finish 1 product. I have a FP301 is the etch primer, and FT302 is the primer reducer for the etch primer. There's no hardener in any of these etch primers. It just goes on like a really thin coat. You don't put it on really heavy or anything. You're just doing it to protect it. You know, the can does have the mix ratio, which is 1:1. I've already mixed it. I got it stirred up really nice. It's already mixed. And as you can see, it's a pretty thin product. It's not very thick. We're not filling anything. We're not doing any kind of primer fillers or anything like that on it. Not in this stage. This is just, you know, just for metal protection. It's just to etch the primer down. It's just an etch primer to protect the metal from any type of moisture contaminants or anything like that that can potentially damage our paint job in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and get this sprayed on there, and we'll see you in a minute. Alright, so now that I have the whole car coated in a light coat etch prime, you know, I try to get in there everywhere as best I can. You know, sometimes you just can't get in there as good as the guy does with the nozzle, but a lot of this is getting cut out still, so I just want to protect it for now, like I've been saying this whole time. You know, just protecting the car for right now. You know, as I start doing sheet metal work and getting the doors fit and making sure everything is going to be what it is body-wise, it's going to be a little while before I get the chassis for the car. It's quite a bit expensive, so I just have to kind of bide my time and, you know, collect as much money and save as much money as I can so I can get a deposit on it. That way I can have this chassis within the year. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing all the sheet metal work. I'll get the quarters done. I'll get the doors on it, make sure they're mint, get the front end on it. I'm going to get the tubular upper structure of the front end all put on. I have a lot of work to do, you know, that I can do without having the chassis or without really having to spend much money. So I'm just going to keep doing all of that, you know, until I either run out of money or I run out of parts. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up the primer. The primer is a high build primer, even though, you know, we're not using it to fill anything or anything like that. We're just going to put two wet coats of primer on it, just to, again, we're just trying to protect what we have here. So we're going to go ahead and mix that primer up. The primer that I like to use, that we use here at the shop, it is a Sherwin-Williams brand. It's the Spectra Prime P30. It's a really good primer. It doesn't shrink. It honestly probably the best primer I've ever used. We're doing, like, you know, very rarely do I have an issue with it. We're going to be using the P30B, which is black. I'm just going to do it solid black. That's a 4:1:1. It's the P30B primer with the AS8 reducer and the H38 hardener. got our primer on after we had primed it. You know, in black primer you can see in person all the imperfections in the metal, and there's damage from over the years. You know, there's a big crease in the panel here, a dent there, crease here, but fortunately for me, I'm cutting these quarters off anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But I did prime absolutely everything. I edge primed absolutely everything. I got all of it in nice primer. It's nice and covered. I did only put one coat on it. You know, it don't need 2 coats inside here. It's just gonna be one just to protect it. And then once obviously the car is all put together, assembled and done, then you know, this is just one more added layer of protection that the car will have for the rest of its life. You know, once this car's done, it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about this particular build in general, just because of the extent that I'm going to do it. And just kind of showing you everything's blacked out and primered up after getting the etch prime on there. This is good and protected. And again, you know, I didn't do the roof today. The sandblaster, because this is missing some rivets and stuff up top up here, he was concerned that it would warp the roof, that it was thin and that would be an issue. So he recommended not to blast it, just to sand it by hand. You know, I came in today with the idea I was gonna sand it by hand. I got here, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, man, it's Saturday, it's sunny, it's a nice day. Well, she's out of the booth, she's all primered up, etch primed and primed. Got her protected for now until we can get back on it. We're gonna be taking a short break from the 81. Probably a couple months. I'm gonna be collecting parts for it and getting things situated. So in the meantime, we just wanted to get it protected, get some etch prime and get some primer on there. We're gonna be working on the 79 Coupe that I picked up from New Jersey. So this one's gotta go to the side for now. I gotta make money to buy parts for this bad boy. But she's out of the booth and she's protected, and on to the next step. Follow and subscribe if you guys dig the channel.